Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Now I've been sitting on this one for a while, because I want to do it justice. It's not every day you get to take a look at a pendulum archetype that doesn't have pendulum in its archetypal name, and after the release of some new support that gives their previous cards a bit of a coherent direction, I'm diving into Abyss Actors. So here's the list, and there's a lot to talk about. As always, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, there are two eras of pendulum card design. The first, around the time Klee came out, required that pendulums be super xenophobic and generally awful, lest their infinite resources become a design issue in the future. The second, from Metal Foes on, permitted them to be at the very least on-curve monsters, and occasionally much better than the average card. Abyss Actors are an archetype of monsters released after Konami figured pendulums were mediocre enough they could have good things, but for some reason these late bloomers still demand the same type of xenophobia that their great-grandpendies suffered from. Their monsters are very individually powerful, which is good news because you're incentivized to end boards with them instead of a Link boss. Unfortunately, their two unique playstyles just weren't enough for them to see consistent play. Their one gimmick rewards you for playing monsters that are either level 1 or level 8, and their other rewards you for setting a card and then your opponent destroying it with a card effect while it's set. With scales that didn't facilitate the former play, and no way to guarantee the latter ever fired off, they were relegated to small side engines in better pendulum decks. Until now, the new support released for Abyss Actors in the form of two new monsters, a new spell and a field spell, all enable the archetype to make use of its blind MST mechanic while simultaneously affording it enough playables to avoid reliance on the 1-8 gimmick entirely. The field spell, provided you have an Abyss Actor face up and in the extra deck, changes one of your opponent's monster's effects to destroy one set card your opponent controls. This of course procs the destruction effect of your Abyss scripts, which are game-winningly busted. Since the levels of the newly released monsters mean you have consistent access to rank 7s as well, we can take a page out of Pendulum Magician's book and include the requisite cards necessary for Vortex Dragon setups. Effectively, this is going to be a deck that borrows the best generic Pendulum Electromite starters from Pendulum Magicians, but aims to end on a card that negates the effects of the first monster our opponent plays, and pluses us in the process. Because we're playing significantly less actual monsters than Pendulum Magicians, however, we need to include backup plans for scenarios where we end up locked out by Wild Hope or Madonna's effect, and can at the very least guarantee a live stage. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, we have 3 Superstar, who makes your summon non-negatable. Next is 3 Mellow Madonna, who can search an Abyss Actor to hand, locking you out of your non-Abyss plays, and sits at a healthy low scale of 0. After that is Wild Hope. This man has positive synergy with Electromite, searching an Abyss Actor when he's destroyed, and changing a scale to 9 at the cost of a lockout. After that is Curtain Raiser, who specials himself from the Pendulum Zone, followed by 3 of another new monster, Comic Relief. When this card's in the Pendulum Zone, he can target an Abyss Actor and an opponent's monster and switch their control. When control of him is switched, he destroys a set card, that is to say, one of your own. After that is Dandy Supporting. I have no idea what this card does, but I felt like the deck needed another normal summonable monster to consistently make Electromite, since we're usually scaling Hope or Comic. After that are the classic Pendy Boys, 3 Chrono, 1 Time Gazer, 3 Dark Worm, 2 Gate 0. Next we have 3 Ash Blossom, because the Draw 5 effect on Opening Ceremony only really matters if you do something with the cards immediately. 3 Abyss King, which is an actually good Abyss script, 1 Opening Ceremony, 1 Abyss Tainment, 3 Fantastic Theater, a Shrine, a Foolish, and 2 Desires. In the extra, we've got normal Pendy stuff, Vortex, Absolute, Naruto. The deck often ends on an Electromite and a rank 4 as well, so we're playing 1 Tornado Dragon and 1 Abyss Dweller, followed by Borreload, Boral Sword, Saruya, Metaltron, Nightmares, Phoenix, and Cerberus, 3 Electromite, and 1 Velintrindo Duo. Often you can make a Pendulum summon one play, but can't assemble Electromite with an Abyss Actor on board. This allows you to use your normal summon to get an Actor in the face-up extra in a pinch. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Magical Musketeer, and this really showcases the power of the field spell opens of this deck. Unfortunately, outside of assembling the field spell, this hand really doesn't do anything. We can't make Electromite. The best thing we can do is special summon this copy of Superstar and hope for the best. This is one of the many reasons I end up cutting the terraforming that we're going to start by activating. We'll get ourselves a copy of Fantastic Theater, use its effect to get a copy of Opening Script to our hand, set scales, special summon this copy of Superstar, set this Opening Ceremony, and pass it back to our opponent. They're going to start by normal summoning a copy of Shooter the Kid and activating Death Barado, turning on our copy of Fantastic Theater and drawing us 4 cards as they attempt to resolve the effect of the Kid. We can now just style on our opponent. We'll go ahead and activate Fantastic Theater to get another card to our hand. Our opponent, unfortunately, is forced to destroy a card we control that we don't even have out yet. We'll go for a Time Gazer Magician, a Curtain Raiser, Razor and Electrum, prompting a solemn judgment from our opponent, but we still have Pot of Desires, we still have Dragon Shrine, and they'll concede. Our second match is up against True Draco, and God, is there anything more sexy than 5 Pendulum monsters in your opening hand? We're going to start by activating the effect of Curtain Razor to get a Pendulum monster to our side of the field without using our normal summon, which we're reserving for Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, getting a gate. We'll go into Electromite to use its effect to send a Chronograph Sorcerer face up because we need that scale. We'll go ahead and swap them, then get Mellow Madonna in the other scale so we can Pendulum summon a 4, a 4, a 7, and a 7. Oh boy, there's a Tornado Dragon, there's an Absolute Dragon, there's a Metaltron, and of course there's a Vortex. Things are looking up. We're going to use Mellow Madonna in end step because we're done summoning, and our opponent is going to draw, set a card, and oh god, turn off all of our monsters. Well, they'll start by tribute summoning a copy of Dynamite Knight, then destroy our copy of Vortex with the trap effect of Apocalypse. They're going to walk into our Metaltron, pass it back. Oh, this is not ideal. We're going to go ahead and pop that copy of Monarch's Erupt in end step. That's pretty lucky that we didn't hit something that destroys a spell or trap. We'll then Pendulum summon a whole bunch of monsters after using Mellow Madonna's effect because we're basically done doing anything that isn't Abyss Actor related. We're just a little bit off lethal here, but we're going to do as much as we can, and we can search with Superstar's effect a copy of Abyss-tainment. We'll fire that sucker off so we can destroy 2 of our opponent's cards, and while they do get to eat our scales for it, they can never eat the monsters on our board. They've got 2 copies of a mono in hand, and oh god, there's the 1 card that gets them out. They'll fire off a card of Demise, they find a Dragonic Diagram, they'll destroy their second Awato to get a copy of Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix, shuffling 3, hand drawing, and oh boy, they will attack over our 1000 attack monster and pass it back to us. Once a mono goes back, we're going to use Tornado to destroy the spell, and they destroy our set spell! Oh, thank god! We get to draw 5 cards, and now the game is all the way over. In standby, our copy of Comic Relief returns to their side of the board. Unfortunate that it's mandatory, but we have more than enough resources to blow out our opponent. We'll special summon as many monsters as possible, activate Abyss King, and they will concede. Alright, so it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent is playing Sky Strikers, and they're going first. That's not ideal. Thankfully, our hand is pretty good, and theirs is pretty bad. They're going to activate this copy of Foolish Burial Goods to send a copy of Metal Foes Fusion, shuffle it back for a Ray. Come on. Well, there's Shizuku. They're going to set 3 and pass it back. They had a startup engage in end step, so we have to kill them now. Thankfully, our hand is sweet. We're going to activate Chronograph Sorcerer to get a copy of Time Gazer Magician, activate the second effect of Chronograph Sorcerer to special summon a copy of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, and there's the Shared Ride, but I think we can play around it. We'll go into Electromite, sending a copy of Bella Madonna. We'll then destroy our 0 for the Bella back to our hand, activate Pot of Desires to draw a whole bunch of cards, then Fantastic Theater is live, so we will be able to prevent our opponent's raise effect from happening as long as we have a copy of an Abyss Actor on our side of the board, which we do. We're going to get in after it fails to activate, and then we'll set a copy of Opening Ceremony for good measure. Our opponent draws, and what do they find but the field spell? They'll go ahead and set that. I guess that's probably worth Ash Blossoming, so we will do just that. Unfortunately, now they have Widow Anchor. They can start up engage, and Jamming Wave is just unfortunate. They'll go ahead and normal summon a copy of Brandish Maiden Ray, go into Kagari to add startup engage back. You've probably seen this before. Then Afterburner, the remainder of our board, Widow Anchoring when we try to activate the effect of Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. From here, we are effectively locked out of the game. We really need another scale quite desperately. They're going to go into Phoenix, and suddenly we need 2. They're going to Ash Blossom our Wild Hope even, so we don't even have any semblance of the ability to special summon. We draw into another copy of the field spell and concede. So it's time for game 2, and at the very least, we're going first. We're going to start by activating the effect of Abyss Actor Curtain Razor to get it to our side of the board. Then we'll normal summon a copy of Comic Relief, activate Pot of Desires to fish for hand traps. We find one. So now it's time to go into Electromite. And, oh, a second. This time the literal hand trap, Infinite Transience. We'll go ahead and activate the effect of Mellow Madonna, adding a Wild Hope to our hand. We're locked out of anything but Abysses, but at the very least, getting Comic Relief on our side of the board is pretty good when we have a script in hand. Hopefully he survives till standby. Our opponent's going to start by Foolish Burial Goodsing and Widowing so they can get a full startup engage, adding a Ray and a copy of the field spell. They're going to target Ray, then chain Ray so she doesn't get destroyed, getting a Kagari, and there's a Hornet Drones. Wow, that's excellent. They're then going to use Kagari's effect to get a copy of Brandish Startup Engage back to their hand, getting an Afterburner, and then firing it off, hitting exactly what they're supposed to, this copy of Wild Hope and this Comedian. We get a Mellow Madonna, which is something at the very least. They'll use the effect of Metal Foes Fusion to draw a card, get over our copy of Electromite, go into Shizuku, and pass it back. So I'm thinking things are okay. At the very least, we have an active copy of Mellow Madonna, but when we go to activate it, there's Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Now, this is what we have to do to deal with Shizuku. We attack over it, here comes Ray. In main phase 2, we flipped Rise of the Abyss King, it tribs for Kagari, and we have to do it again with a second Abyss King while plussing our opponent. That's enough for me to concede. So we're back with the deck, and it's good. There's a couple of things that are keeping it down, though. First, as sweet as the field spell is, it is wildly inconsistent. You really, really want to be playing a critical mass of Pendulums in order to be able to consistently make meaningful Electromites, so dedicating tons of main deck space to scripts, terraformings, and the field spell is a bit of a feels bad man. Second, like Pendulums, you're making pretty consistent large boards, but unlike Pendulums, your monsters don't recur nearly as efficiently. This means that if your opponent interrupts you, you're pretty screwed, and with 13 non-Pendulums in my build, it's hard to justify additional space for Called. 3 is that the lockout happens extremely frequently. You're going to have to be prepared to play a grindy game where you just summon Superstar over and over again. Sometimes it's enough to seek yourself a script. And that's basically it. There's a lot to be said for a deck with Monkey Board, and this does have distinct advantages over normal Pendulums. I'll be tinkering with it at least until release, and crossing my fingers that it's the breakout hotness. So that's that. I hope you can ignore my 0 IQ plays. I'm not particularly well known for my pendulum piloting. If you want to see me make the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time, and if you want to have a certain deck or archetype featured on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below or join me on Discord. Otherwise, I'll see you Wednesday.